have to be back again. It's my DNA destiny to continue to pound the drum, blow the whistle, sound the alarm. And I'm living a peaceful life. But it hasn't always been that way. So I've shared a couple of podcasts with you where I really wanted to establish a framework of what's possible. But now we really have to get super clear about what's possible as a human being. So today I'm going to open up the topic, the experience of what I call the primal quest. The primal quest is the juggernaut. It's the gauntlet that any one of us, male, female, doesn't matter, gender doesn't matter, age doesn't matter, as I came to find out. What is the primal quest? The primal quest is that you're able to connect the dots of your life experience so that they lead you to something more than the condensed period of time that you actually live and breathe anything that really lights you up and gives you a sense that you're worthwhile, that your life is worthwhile, that it matters that you were born, that you are connected to something that is a primal quest of creation. I do like to imagine that what I feel is my connection to Source leads me to trust is that Source is a creator, Source is an artist, Source doesn't have a plan for every bit of creation that unfolds from the green button that Source pushed. Who knows? Because before Source pushed it, there was no time. Time aligned with consciousness. I think that's a fairly new development in terms of what we call human awareness. And we're so confused that we actually think what we focus on as human awareness, as human life experience, is the end all and the be all of creation, which I promise you it's not. So today we're going to look at Primal Quest, and I want you to understand what could come at you as a means for you to connect the deepest dots of awareness and sense of connection to the greatest energy. Nuclear bombs don't even touch this. Nuclear weapons can't touch this. We are talking about massive, massive consciousness that divides, subdivides, breaks off, branches, starts new, finishes constantly in the now. It is all happening now. You can't appreciate that when you're in a human body. It's just too hard. It's just too much. This little itsy bitsy hot dog of a nervous system was not set up for you to be able to fully grasp what it is that we are in here on this one tiny little planet where there happens to be some hominids that are about to destroy the planet. Not new. It's happened before. It will happen again. Until and unless we are successful as conscious entities to fully grasp the primal quest. I know it's like a sci-fi movie, except it's not. So I'm going to break down for you the primal quest events in my life because I need you to have some kind of a roadmap for you to look in your own life and recognize some of these dots and then connect them. Because your own internal system, your own DNA, depending on what's activated in you, this could be so hard. You might miss it. Missing it would be an indescribable tragedy because you will leave your body, however way that happens, not knowing what's possible. So I'm going to take you through, done some of these already, age 5 years, right? I talked about being born awake, so we started there. Then I saw first death in front of my house before I was, off my mother's hip, but I was aware of what was happening. That was probably about maybe age 18 months, maybe age 2 years old. Then things progressed. So, then I had the near drowning at 5. Then there were other things that transpired, so I'm not exactly sure when and how these things happened, but I can tell you 2 very important connect the dots events happened when I was 10 years old. One was that my mother went off to, I was in 6th grade, she went off to model in a runway show. She's a gorgeous woman, and she was a model for some meaningful period of her life. It was part of her ambition. She went off out of town for a week-long live fashion show, and my brother and my stepsister and I were left in the care of our father. I had already experienced something devastating to me when my mother left the house for a week to give birth to my brother. And while she was gone in the hospital doing that, my father took license with me, feeling that, I'm his daughter, he owns me, whatever he wants to do with me, he can do, especially when there's nobody around to watch or witness, right? Okay. So that happened, age 10 was a big year. That happened at age 10, that I had to face the fact that my mother was going to be gone for another whole week. And I knew what had happened the last time she went away for another whole week. How was I going to protect myself? Because I didn't really have language for what was going on here. I just knew it didn't feel right. Okay. It's part of my primal quest. It was like, attention, attention, attention. This does not feel right. Pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. Danger, Will Robinson. Okay. So, yeah. What did I do? She hadn't been gone a full day yet. It was up and out, get ready to go to school. It was my job to walk our standard poodle, Coupe, got up, got dressed, took the dog out for a walk, tripped on a divot in the park. Was all covered with grass, so I couldn't see there was a hole. I fell down, really hurt myself. For once, Poupée behaved like he never did otherwise. He went and scampered across the street and sat on the porch and waited. He knew I was hurt. I managed to get myself up. I was in a lot of pain, and I had broken my arm. We didn't know that till I went into the house and I was crying, and I was like, Dad, this really hurts, and something's really wrong, la la la. Might have even shown, I don't remember really looking at it, but I knew that it was really, really bad. No bone was sticking out. It wasn't that bad. But we go to the hospital. My father was royally inconvenienced. Too bad. The x-rays come back, my arm is broken. So he has to wait while I get a cast, la la la. I'm still in a lot of pain. We go back to the house. He has to go to work. I go straight to bed. And now I have something of power that could hurt him if I needed to fend him off again. That was part of my power quest. That was part of me taking my fear, and honestly, we co-create these moments. And life says, yeah, we'll help you do that because, yeah, it's part of your primal quest. So we're going to arrange for there to be a hole for you to put your foot in, for you to fall down, for you to break your arm, for the dog to go, oh, home and sit on the porch like he never does. And then for you to have a weapon if you need something to defend yourself from your father's advances. Okay, that was 10 years old. Simultaneously, around that same time in school, I had to find a way to defend myself and my classmates because I had been elected president of my school class from grades 3, 4, 5, and 6. And in fifth grade, I was 10, we had, I'm sure she escaped from the Catholic Church and was once a nun, Miss McClanahan, who was a mess and at minimum incredibly racist, teaching elementary school in a neighborhood where we were an integrated neighborhood. We had black and white children in our class, which at that time was kind of unusual. It's not today, but it was then. She was horrible. She was horrible. And our class had traveled together from basically from first grade. First grade, same kids. Second grade, same kids. Third grade, same kids. Fourth grade, same kids. Fifth grade, we expected to have our camaraderie and our sense of we're a class and we stand as a class together, even though we're not all best friends. We expected that to continue. She cut that off at the head once we got into her room. Her remark when we asked when we would continue our French classes, we were having French lessons on WHYY and TV lessons, and we wanted to continue that because it was going well. No, 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 no. You're not going to have French lessons. Most of you can't even speak English. Right? These kinds of things, very passive aggressive, a lot of microaggression going on every day. There was a young man who sat in front of me. His name was Dennis Cohen, and he was biting his nails down to the quick. He was so distraught. Tension unbelievable. I went home every day with a stomach ache. Day after day. Like, just, this is horrible. She took it too far. I'll tell you the primal quest of my like going, I'm sorry, this is too far. I realized that we were having a big problem and it wasn't going to work out well, and that we needed an intervention. So, being president of the class, I made an appointment with the principal of the school, Mr. Dennis. I need to see the principal. So he was great. He said, "Okay, what's up? Tell me what's going on." And I told him about what was happening in our class with Miss McClanahan, and I said, "You know what? We need some help. It would be great if you would talk to her because she's making mincemeat out of us, and we don't deserve that." Okay, so I trusted that something might come of that. I didn't know whether it would or when it would. Sometime later, in the early morning, we come in and we sit down, and Miss McClanahan stands at the front of the class, and she said, "I understand that some of you don't like me. So I'm going to give you each a piece of paper, and I'm going to give you 10 minutes to write down on your paper what it is that you don't like about me, and be sure you put your name on your paper." I'm like so straight up. I'm like, oh, cool. We're going to have a group meeting here. We're going to go do some conflict resolution, and she's going to like bite the bullet and take the feedback. No way. I didn't know that. because I'm old, I'm a really old soul. And I thought, okay, well, here we go. There's going to be some accommodation. No accommodation, not for children, not for fifth graders, not when you're an ex-nun and you're like, "Bleh." Okay. So I was like, okay, good. We got an assignment. Let me do it. I wrote my name on my paper and I made my list. And then I waited. Like I did what she asked us to do. She collected all the papers. Now, within days of this, it was also going to be her birthday. And I had, once again, as president of the class, engineered we were going to give her a surprise party because I don't dislike anybody that much that I'm going to ignore their birthday when I'm like have to be in the same classroom with them. And I didn't have that kind of animosity toward her. Not a problem for me. Conflict resolution, great. You do it, you get it over with. And oh, by the way, it's your birthday. Congratulations. Here, we're going to have some cupcakes. So I had organized things, and people bought pretzels, and they bought potato chips, and somebody bought napkins, and somebody bought little plates. And then we had a couple of bottles of juice, and some people got birthday cards, and we were just going to surprise her. So I went and asked our fourth grade teacher, who we all love, Mrs. Abrams, if she would come out and call Miss McClanahan out of the room on some ruse. She could figure it out. She's a teacher. She could, no problem, she would be able to do that. Gave her the reason why. We're going to set up the surprise for her, and we need you to take her out in the hall and keep talking to her. Take her somewhere, take her to, I don't know, whatever, take her to the gymnasium, where you gotta, whatever you gotta do. And so we had everything set up. And when Miss McClanahan walked back in the room, everybody stood up and sang happy birthday. Well, she was nonplussed, putting it mildly. Everyone, sit down. Stop this immediately. And then she had to figure out how she was going to respond to this major act of kindness after children who were just asking for the respect that we were giving her. We need to clear up. There's conflict here. We need to resolve it. And you don't get to run the show, and we don't have any power. That was my stance. So we all get very quiet and get back in our seats, and she gets her roll book out, and she's already collected the papers of who doesn't like her and why. And it never occurred to us that was going to go anywhere but in a where we intended it to have some merit. Oh my God. Okay, so then she said, now, if you gave me a birthday card, please come and get your birthday card from my desk and then stand in front of the blackboard. Okay, well, sure. So those of us who had spent the extra quarter to get her a birthday card got our cards, and there were like 5 of us, 6 of us, and we stood in front of the blackboard. She gets her roll book. She walks down the line and she says, I'll take your card. I think you mean it. I won't take your card. I don't think you need it. Some notation in her roll book. And she went down the line like this, and thank God, by the time she got done with that, it was like end of the school morning. It was time for us to all go home for lunch for an hour. Me, I went to a luncheonette every day because my mom was a working mom. I had a tab running at a local luncheonette. I just went and got the same thing every day. Picked out some comic books to look at, ate my lunch, and then went back to school. And this was the same place that McClanahan ate lunch. So when I went to go have lunch at my booth, because I had a designated booth, I had to sit there and just maintain my composure, pull into my sense of self. When McClanahan and her best bud, Mrs. McCormick, came in and sat down in their booth to have their lunch. Not a word was spoken. I'm 10 years old. This is a lot of emotional complexity for a 10-year-old, but this was part of my primal quest. How do you handle this kind of crap? Oh, whoa. I'm just like, I like making art and writing and writing poems and writing stories. Now, I didn't really need the rest of this, but I wasn't going to sit and watch my entire class be disrespected. That was a non-starter for me. All right. So that was age 10, those two things. Then at age 12, two other things happened. Um, I was taking guitar lessons at that time, and on Saturday mornings, I would get up and walk to the bus stop with my guitar and travel to not too far, a couple of bus stops away to my guitar teacher's place and take my lesson. I loved doing this. This was just so great for me. So it's a Saturday morning, and our home was situated down the hill from the schoolyard where I attended school. And on Saturday, there was nobody there. Nobody was doing anything. And so I'm walking to the bus stop, pretty little me with my guitar, and I'm walking, and a man drives up in a car, and he rolls down his windows and calls out to me. I turn to look at him like, yeah, what, you know? He said, oh, can I give you a ride? Would you like to have a ride? Would you like a ride? Bing, 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 danger, Will Robinson. Another moment, next episode of Primal Quest. So I'm looking around the schoolyard. There's nobody there. I'm looking at the row houses across the street. If I start screaming, what are the odds of someone coming out and being able to help me before he snatches me and puts me in his car and takes me away? Now, this was just when child abductions and murders were just starting to be kind of trendy. There was some creepy guy named Elmo Smith who had like made national news when he abducted and murdered a young child. So we were all like, well, that's happening now. Jesus. Well, I knew about that. I didn't understand all the details, but I knew that it was not an outcome I wanted to be any part of. So I'm looking at this guy. I turned around and I faced him, and I was 10, so I was 12 at that point. I knew a lot of curse words. I had had my mouth washed out with soap already by my grandmother. That was terrible. So I looked at him, steady, grounded, and I let hurl every curse word I had ever heard. You bunk, 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 son of a bunk, 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 get the bunk out of here, bunk, bunk. The man was shocked, not expected. He rolled up the window and drove away. Now, from my perspective, I had just probably saved my own life and physical virginity or whatever, right? He could have been straight up nice guy. I don't know why he would be doing that on a Saturday morning, asking little girls he didn't know to get into his car, but that math didn't work out for me. So I hurled every nasty thing I had ever heard in a nonstop stream of consciousness, and then stood there and waited for him to come back with me at something. And what he came back with was rolling up the window and driving away. Primal Quest. That summer, I was getting to the point now where I just kind of wanted to do my own thing, give me some transportation money. I'm going to get a bus. I'm going to go down to the art museum. I'm going to go see a baseball game. I'm going to just do what I want to do on a Saturday morning till art classes came into view, because that's just give me the car fare. Okay. I'll tell you where I'm going. You'll have some idea. Independent? You bet. So that day I decided, hey, I think I'm going to go to Willow Grove Park. Beautiful amusement park in the suburbs of Philadelphia at that time. Had a lake, had swan boats. It was really cool. And I hadn't yet ridden on the roller coaster. And I was like, I'd seen people do it, and it looked really like, wow, I don't know about that one. Looked a little risky. But I decided, oh, I'm 12. I'm going to go to junior high in the fall. I got to do this. So I get in line and I ride the roller coaster, and I was so proud of myself when I got off because I was okay. And it was kind of sort of fun. It was not, some parts of it were like really kind of weird, but I sort of integrated all of that and I get off the roller coaster. And I'm thinking, okay, I got some tickets. I'm gonna go to the fun house. So I go to the fun house next and I get in line, and they move you in groups to the fun house, 5, 10 people at a time. And so we're walking, it was a walkthrough kind of thing. And we walk through the fun house, and you know, they had statues of clowns or whatever that would do, oh, and it was just, very, very, very like low tech kind of whatever. But we there was a hall of mirrors where we walked through as a group, a couple of parents with their kids and then some kids in their own. And we come into the hall of mirrors, and there were mirrors where you would look and stand in front of the mirror and you look like a midget. And then there was a mirror where you look like a giant. And so that was kind of entertaining. That was cool. And then after the hall of mirrors, we there was only one way you could go, and that was to the next part of the fun house. Well, we walked in there and it was completely dark, no lighting. We could no longer see anything from the previous room. And everyone was like, uh-oh. And so this was an old wooden structure, old. And I'm standing there going, I'm looking around for things that might make sense in this circumstance, something I can hold on to. And one of the parents, dad was a smoker, so he pulls out his matches. And I just immediately shifted into drill sergeant mode, and I shouted at him, "Put that out! You can't have a lit match in here. You can't smoke in here. We can't see. What if you drop something and suddenly the building catches on fire? Put it out." He did. And then I went a step further. I went into leadership mode. I said, this is what we're going to do. Everybody, walk over to the wall with your left hand. That's the exterior wall. I had observed this. Put your hand on the wall. And then we're going to walk with our hands on the wall because we can't see anything else. And eventually, this will take us somewhere where there will either be a light on or a person, and we might be okay. I led the way. I took the lead, and I put my hand on the wall and I started walking. Everyone followed me. Sure enough, we came into another space where there was a light, and we kept going. And then we came to another space where we could see external light. A door was open and a person was standing there. His job was to count heads of who left the fun house, how many went in, how many came out. And we told him, we said, you don't have any lights. After the hall of mirrors, there are no lights. You can't see anything. Well, that was a liability issue for them. They needed to know that. So we got out of there. I learned something about my intuition, about my voice, and my intention to protect myself and to protect others best way I could. That was age 12. At age 15, I walked with a group of Quakers from Philadelphia down into Maryland as part of a political protest. And when we were in this little town in Windsor, Maryland, it had been arranged for us to sleep the night after walking 20 miles in the church. They were going to put us up for the night, and it was Church of the Brethren. And so we get there, Church of the Brethren, and I'm like, okay, it's cool. It was like a late spring night because I was on school vacation. I was like, okay, nice weather. And I noticed the truck outside of the church was parked, and they were collecting clothing to give to poor African children. There were So anyway, a bunch of us, like five, six, seven of us decided, nothing to do here. Why don't we go take a stroll and see if we can get a hamburger and some fries and a Coke? So we walk around tiny Windsor. Then it was just like, I don't know, maybe 3 blocks and the church. I don't know. But we walk and we see um a burger joint. And as we walk up to the burger joint, we see white only and colored only signs. Now we knew this was illegal. And we knew that they had to know that this was illegal. The civil rights law had been passed already. This was not news. And we're a mixed group, we're a mixed race group. So we had a quick conversation outside and we sized things up and we all walked into the white only door. And we went and we just sat down, pulled up some chairs at a big table. We sat down, figured out what we were going to get to eat, drink. And so a young man came over with his order pad and he looked a little confused. There's people were playing pool, it was that kind of a thing. And he decided, he made his decision. He walked with his order pad and he went to each person and he said, I'll take your order. And he wrote it down. And then he went to the next person who was a very dark-skinned young black man. And he said, I can't take your order. Matter of fact, and so he went around the group and he decided whose orders he could take. Me, he didn't know what to do. He couldn't figure it out. So he said, well, I'll take your order. And that when he finished saying that, I stood up and I said, well, we're going to arrest you now, civil disobedience, because you've just broken the civil rights law, discrimination, and so we're placing you under citizen's arrest. Yeah, we did. And we had quarters and nickels and dimes, and so we had a plan. So I went to the phone and looked in the phone book and looked for the state attorney general's office and then the state police and then la la la, and made all the phone calls and then called the press. Huh? And we ate our food and we waited for people to arrive, and they did. And the sheriff and the people just came over and took over the situation. And we made sure that they acknowledged, because there was a news reporter there, that this was we were doing a civil disobedience actions because the civil rights law had been broken. So things went on like this. High school, junior high was kind of chill. It was great. Oh, it felt like it was all right until I got into a geometry class and I realized that what they were teaching as geometry was so wrong. And I just like tried to get with the geometry the way they were teaching it, knowing that it was incomplete wrong. That was a challenge, but other than that, everybody was cool, and I made a best friend that year because we were doing 2 years in one. I was doing seventh and eighth grade in 1 year. I mean, I'm a unicorn, I'm an egghead. Wonderful friend. She became my best friend until she passed away. Moved first, we remained friends. We did a couple of other really cool things together. And then at age 19, she was hit in the head by a cop in a civil rights protest movement, civil war protest movement. And she didn't, anyway, 6 weeks later, she died of a brain hemorrhage. My best friend. Okay. Who, when she drove away from my home after visiting her godchild, I knew I'd never see her again. I knew it. Whatever she had done in this lifetime, she had completed, and it was all over her. And she was shining like a star. And before she left, I said, Abby, listen, I need you to do something for me. Don't pick up any strangers. Like they had fixed up a VW van. They were going to drive across country for their summer vacation. It was all good. I said, just be really careful because I want to hear from you and about your trip, not about you. And I watched her drive down the driveway. Now, today, I would have said, you still have a lump in your head and you've been on the pill and you're a smoker. Before you go anywhere, we're going to go to a hospital and we're going to have you x-rayed to make sure you're okay because you might not be okay. I know that now because I'm a holistic practitioner and a lot more, and I would do that now. I didn't know enough yet then to protect my friend. I just knew that I wasn't going to see her again. And so she left our home on a Thursday, and Saturday, my husband and I were scheduled to go to New York to celebrate our anniversary, see a Broadway show in New York. And we were just kind of getting ready to leave because, New York wasn't that far away, and we had a back way to go through Bucks County. The phone rang, and my husband picked it up, and I was getting dressed, and he nodded and listened, and he looked at me, he said, I think you better sit down. And I looked at him, I said, your mother? Your father? No. My mother? My father? No. I said, it's Abby, isn't it? It's Abby. And he said, yes, it's Abby. There wasn't anything we could do at that point. She'd already let me know she was going. And so we went to New York and we saw the show. And I sat there watching that Broadway show in a very complex array of emotions, as you can imagine. So these primal quest moments kept happening, during which my awareness was being activated, my DNA was being activated with these sort of out of the box experiences that I needed to pour myself into pause and find the dots that needed to be connected, find what I needed to be aware of about how I was relating in the world, how I could know things that other people could not know because I didn't understand it. I'd already proven to my mother that I could read her mind, and then she just after that it was like give her the car for let her go. I don't want her around me anymore. She scares me. There were more. There were many more. Beautiful ones, giving birth to a son, loving being a mom, managing being a wife, feeling that, life was getting a little bit too small for the spirit that I am. And then it was when my baby was napping one day. I was cleaning the kitchen. I'm mopping the kitchen floor. I have my first out of body experience. I'm on the ceiling looking down at me mopping the floor, and I've got company who were saying, yeah, you're doing a really good job mopping this floor. This was just for me to be aware that I had the capacity to be in two states of consciousness at the same time, one of which was non-local to my physical body. Primal quest, primal quest. So when it happened again and again and again, as my DNA began to weave and awaken the strands that one can call spirituality, I had some other corridor in me that was like my X-Files, right? Put it in the X-Files. Don't judge it, just observe it, ask whatever questions you can, and keep this X file open because clearly you're going to be making more deposits. This is what the living spiral of transformation is all about. There's so much more. We can't do any of this in one, and like I think it would take me 5 or 6 podcasts to share with you all of the full material that as a unicorn, as a very evolved, I don't know why. I mean, I kind of didn't know why until I first had the near-death experience at age 24, which I believe I recorded already. And then when I had my awakening, and blew my mind. It was just a beautiful confluence of things. I was a certified shorthand reporter. I had husband who was in medical school, and we had moved house and left our home in Philadelphia and rented it and moved the kids. And now I was going to be a freelance court reporter after having done a 2-year program in 9 months because we didn't have time for me to dawdle. We had a very tight schedule. So what did I do? Because I didn't know anybody. How was I going to get a job as a freelance certified shorthand reporter? That was going to take some work. I'm undaunted by these things. So what did I do? I went with my husband to his medical school lectures with my new stenotype machine, this was when doing the transcription by hand was going the wayside, and now you did it with two-hand technology. It's what I'd studied for and gotten certified in. And so I sat with him and took notes of all of his lectures. Kids were in school. And then I went to my computer system, popped in the tapes, and went through and transcribed those notes and looked up all the medical terminology to include it in my vocabulary. Why? So that I would be eligible to get hired for a medical malpractice case that paid a lot of money. You could handle that language and the speed at which people speak and transcribe it with 98% accuracy, going to make some big bucks. And that's what I did. So that led, maybe I'll finish here. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I hope you're finding this interesting and entertaining. Why am I sharing this with you? Because you may have a lot of dots that you haven't connected yet, and you don't have anyone to talk to who won't think you're crazy. I know that you would not be crazy, especially if you haven't done any drugs, which I never had done. It was just like, what is going on here? Why am I out of my body? What does that mean? What's happening? Why is it happening for me? Maybe I shouldn't worry about that right now. Maybe I should just stay in the present and continue on this primal quest. So one day, on a break, lunch break, from doing a medical malpractice case, and I had successfully established myself as a court reporter who could do this work. And that was usually multi-attorneys asking for the transcript, which means I was making great money. So I'm on this break, and I am in a bookstore. I love reading, and Borders was one of my favorite bookstores back then. And I'm walking around, just kind of looking, and I had a cup of coffee. I had already grabbed a bite to eat, when literally a book, which I was nowhere near at the time, and there was nobody else around, a book literally fell off the top shelf of the Borders bookcase, display case, and hit me in the head, and then landed cover up on the carpeted floor. Well, I had to look, right? Pick up the book. The title of the book was Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe. Clue phone, buy the book. Clue phone, read the book. Clue phone, when you read the book, call the Monroe Institute and sign up for a week-long retreat at the Institute. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah. And it was at the Monroe Institute. Interesting factoid. I had a little Mercedes-Benz I was driving at that time. That's how well I was doing. My husband was driving the Subaru wagon. That's how well I was doing professionally. So he said, what do you mean you're going away? I said, you can take care of these kids. They're both, none of them are in diapers. You can cook. You can do this. I'll be gone for a week. I need a break. Bye. Bye, kids. Love you, mean it. Yeah, sound technology. Synchronization of the hemispheres, both brain. Right, left hemispheres of the brain. Oh, wonderful sound information having an impact on biology and neurology of the human being. So this was Robert Monroe's area of expertise, and he had a wonderful background in science and other things. And so I felt perfectly safe going to this institute and using the HemiSync technology. What I wasn't prepared for was that I would have a Kundalini experience where a flash of light, a ball of silver gold light. I saw it when I was listening to the sound in a dark room in a check booth with blinders on and earphones, and I couldn't see anything with my physical eyes, but I could see the energy moving up my spine, and it took only 30 seconds for it to explode in the center of my brain. And then I was in a non-physical environment that was very complicated. And it happened so fast. And when I emerged from my room, sat down with the other participants in our group circle, it was groups of people of 12 that would come for the retreats. I had been blown wide open, wide open. And at that time, I didn't know anything about chakras. I didn't need to know anything about chakras as it turned out, but I learned. I just felt like I had pipes, a pipe here and a pipe here and a pipe here and a pipe here and pipes in my hands and pipes in my middle. And I sat down with this group. I said, what are these pipes? And I had massive amounts of energy flowing through me and out of me through these pipes. Now, detail, when I drove down to Virginia in my little blue Mercedes-Benz diesel car, which I loved, I plotted the trip, 7 hours, 50 miles an hour. I didn't want to get a ticket. So it took me 7 hours to get to Virginia. After this shift in my energy field and my becoming aware, and fortunately there were some people who could tell me, oh, those are your chakras. I'm like, oh, what? And then it was like, that's okay. I'll figure it out on my own. I'll read about it. Something I can read about? Yeah, read Gopi Krishna. Okay, I'll go home. I'll get the Gopi Krishna. I'll read about it. But what is this, right? Because I knew it was changing my life as I was sitting there breathing. It was part of my primal quest. Part of my primal quest was there were people there who could explain it to me, and they could say, oh, you know what? You should sign up for Barbara Brennan's School of Healing. It's starting in September. You should go because this is healing energy. I healed someone on the spot sitting in the circle. She had a headache. I put my hands on her head. Her headache went away. Okay? Primal quest. Primal quest. So, pay attention. And when these little moments sort of show up in your reality field, where something's happening that doesn't quite make sense or it's unexpected, but it seems really interesting and kind of cool, or really interesting and maybe a little bit dangerous, and you need to find a way out real quick. I've got another great story about what happened one Christmas Eve that exactly that. Okay? Primal Quest. So this is again 22 and You podcast. I'm Anaiis Salles. Old soul, youthful exuberance and joy. I'm still a very happy 5-year-old inside here too. Okay, I gotta run because I got a meeting coming up. Hopefully, this will be about an hour long, and I will be adding some things to this if I have to so that it fits the podcast schedule and scheme. If you're here again, if you want to follow up with me, if you would like to learn about your chakras and about your energy field and about quantum leaps and all of that good stuff, look in the show notes. All that will be there for you, and you can reach out to me because I've got such great stuff going on, including mentoring young entrepreneurs and leaders. And you can take the primal quest or not. But if that's your feeling of who you're developing, you might want to consider the additional information that I have for you that you would never have learned at college, at university, in elementary school, and most likely not in your family of origin. Ta-ta for now. Peace, purpose, and power. And pouring into pause. Don't forget about that one.